You ever stop and think about what really happens when you move your money around? You click confirm on an investment and poof, it just happens. It feels instant, right? But behind that one simple action, there's this hidden world, an entire invisible machine working under some serious pressure. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at one of the most precise, high-stakes operations in all of finance.
So let's ask that question directly. What is actually going on in those few seconds after your money officially enters the market? It's so easy to just assume it's all automated, just a bunch of computers talking to each other. But the reality? Oh, it's way more complex and honestly, a lot more interesting than that.
Because what lies behind that click is a world of incredible, almost unbelievable precision, intense pressure, and extremely high stakes. This is a place where a single tiny mistake, or even just a one-day delay, can have absolutely massive consequences. So, let's dive in and see exactly how this whole thing works.
Okay, so our journey into this hidden world is going to start with a very specific kind of financial product. It's one that kind of has a secret of its own. We are talking about something called a variable annuity.
Now here's the core difference. Think of a fixed annuity as being all about safety and predictable guarantees. It's steady. But a variable annuity, its value is tied directly to how the stock market is performing. It's always changing, always in motion. And that right there, that's where all the complexity and all the regulation really kicks in.
Because these products are linked to the market, any activity involving them becomes what's known as a registered transaction. And listen, this is not just some fancy label. It means the transaction is so sensitive, so intertwined with market forces that it falls under super strict federal rules. It requires specialized handling, and there is literally zero room for error.
And that brings us to the first huge source of pressure in this invisible machine, the rules of the game. And these rules are set by some very, very powerful regulators.
We're talking about heavy-hitter agencies like the IRS, and they set these non-negotiable rules for things like required minimum distributions, or RMDs, which are mandatory withdrawals you have to take each year. They also demand razor-sharp, perfect calculations for tax withholding on every single dollar that moves. This isn't a suggestion box, These are hard and fast legal requirements, and if you mess up, the consequences are severe.
And that really brings us to the core principle of this whole operation. In the world of registered transactions, getting it right isn't just some professional goal you aim for. No, it is a legal obligation. The stakes just couldn't be any higher.
So, on top of all that, the next layer of pressure is just as intense, and it's something we can all relate to: time itself. In this world, the clock isn't just telling you the time of day, it's a direct measure of risk. You are, quite literally, racing against it every single minute.
Here's why. Our transaction has to be processed the very same day it's received. Why? Well, because then it gets locked in at today's market closing price. If it has to wait until the next day, it gets tomorrow's price. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but it exposes the client's money to a whole extra day of market swings that's unintended, unpredictable risk that should not be there.
And that's the thing. A delay of just one business day isn't a minor inconvenience. It can be the direct cause of a compliance violation, a serious and, what's worse, an entirely preventable breach of the rules.
And the problems just cascade from there. A delay doesn't just create market risk, it can trigger tax penalties, it can lead to those damaging compliance violations, and maybe worst of all, it can completely shatter a client's trust. The cost of being even a little bit late is absolutely enormous.
So, with all this intense regulatory and time pressure, you have to wonder, how does this system not just break down constantly? Well, the answer isn't some fancy new technology, it's a specific way of thinking, a zero-error mindset that acts as a human firewall against total chaos.
Think about it. When you have a system that has absolutely zero tolerance for mistakes, the most critical component isn't the software or the hardware, it's the deep personal accountability of the people running it. Human judgment becomes the final and most important safety net.
And this mindset, it's really built on 4 pillars. First, verify everything. You check every single piece of information twice. Second, assume nothing. You don't take anything for granted until you have proven it's correct. Third, if you are even slightly unsure about something, you escalate. You don't guess, you go ask a senior leader right away. And finally, you document everything always. You create a bulletproof audit trail of every single action you take. This isn't just a workflow, it's a discipline you live by.
And when you zoom out and look at the big picture, you realize these people aren't just processing paperwork. They are the guardians of precision. They are upholding the invisible trust that we all place in our financial system every single day.
And that right there is the real takeaway. This complex financial machine that moves all of our money, it's not just a network of computers and algorithms. At its very core, it's a human system, one that's built entirely on disciplined judgment and an unwavering commitment to getting it perfect every single time.
So the next time you click that button, maybe take a second to think about the people behind the screen, the ones operating under all that pressure with that zero-error mindset, making absolutely sure your financial world runs perfectly and on time. These are the invisible people, the quiet guardians of a system we all depend on.
All right, let's get started. Now, understand this isn't your typical training. We're not just going to walk through a checklist of procedures today. Think of this as a briefing on the standard of excellence, the absolute unwavering accountability that this role demands. We're talking about the very bedrock of this firm's integrity.
What you're looking at right now isn't an exaggeration. It's not hyperbole. It's the reality of this job every single day. An error that you make at your desk doesn't just stay there. It will ripple out across the entire company, affecting our clients, our bottom line, and, most importantly, the reputation we have spent decades building.
So what is our objective? It's right there, plain and simple. Absolute precision. This is a zero-error mandate. Compliance isn't some target we're just hoping to hit. It's the non-negotiable condition of our license to operate. In this department, close enough is not in our vocabulary. It simply doesn't exist.
So why this intense, uncompromising focus on perfection? It's because you are about to operate in what can only be described as a regulatory minefield. It is absolutely crucial that you understand the incredibly complex and high-stakes environment you're about to step into. Now, at the heart of everything we do is this one product, the variable annuity. And I want you to focus on the last part of that definition. Depends on the performance of an underlying investment portfolio. That one detail, that connection to the market, that changes everything because it directly impacts the retirement savings our clients are counting on. This here really shows you the critical difference. A fixed annuity, it's predictable, but a variable annuity is tied directly to how the market performs. That connection is exactly what makes it a registered product. It's not just some insurance contract anymore, it's legally classified as a security. And that brings a whole different and far more intense level of regulatory scrutiny to the table.
This means you're not just following our internal playbook, you're operating right at the intersection of some very powerful federal agencies. You've got the IRS enforcing incredibly strict tax rules like required minimum distributions. And at the same time, the SEC is watching our every move to make sure we're safeguarding the life savings people have entrusted to us. An error here isn't just a mistake, it's a potential violation with massive financial and legal consequences.
Okay, so let's make this real. Let's trace the ripple effect. Let's see exactly how one seemingly tiny mistake can and will escalate into a crisis for the entire firm. I need you to pay very close attention to how this unfolds.
It always starts with something that seems so small, a single transaction. A retiree's required minimum distribution gets processed just one day late. You know, a simple clerical error. What's the big deal? What could possibly go wrong?
Well, here's what happens. First, that client gets slammed with a massive IRS tax penalty on the retirement money they depend on to live. Next, that client is on the phone with us, and our teams are now scrambling, spending time and money to fix a problem that we created. But it doesn't stop there. That one little error can get our whole firm flagged by regulators, which can trigger painful, expensive audits. And what's left in the end? Financial penalties and a permanent stain on our reputation. All of it from one transaction being one day late.
And it's not just about getting it right, it's also about getting it done fast. Turnaround time, we call it TAT, is a core discipline here. When a client asks to move their money, they're not asking for it to be done tomorrow. They expect it done that day. Any delay exposes their life savings and our firm to market swings they never signed up for. A one-day delay is not a customer service issue. It is a compliance breach. It can mean thousands of dollars in unintended losses or gains for that client. And frankly, either outcome is a total failure on our part. We didn't follow their instructions, and that is a cardinal sin in this business.
So how do we protect ourselves and our clients from these kinds of catastrophic failures? The answer isn't some new software or a longer checklist. It's a mindset. It's a professional discipline that we demand from every single person who touches these transactions. Let's talk about what that looks like.
And let me be perfectly clear. What you're about to see is not a list of helpful tips. These aren't optional best practices. This is our code of conduct. This is the mandatory professional discipline that is required to hold this position at this firm.
This discipline is built on 3 pillars of accountability. First, verify before processing. Trust nothing. Check everything. Second, never assume. If a signature looks a little blurry, if a box on a form is unchecked, the process stops, dead in its tracks, period. And third, escalate immediately. Uncertainty is a giant red flag. Your job is not to guess the right answer. Your job is to raise the alarm.
This next point needs to be burned into your memory. When in doubt, you do not proceed, you escalate. There's no prize for guessing correctly, only severe consequences for guessing wrong, for you and for this entire firm. There are absolutely, positively no exceptions to this rule.
So let's pull all of this together. Your role here is so much more than just processing paperwork. You are a gatekeeper. You are this firm's first, last, and most important line of defense against financial loss, regulatory action, and reputational collapse. I want you to remember this. Our firm's reputation, everything we stand for, our brand in the marketplace, it's not decided in some executive meeting. It is forged or it is fractured, one transaction at a time. Right there, at your desk, your precision is our reputation. And that brings us to the final and most critical point. Our standard is and has to be perfection. So the question I'm going to leave you with is a personal one, and I want you to think about it. Seriously, are you prepared to uphold it? You know, in most jobs, if you make a mistake, you just hit undo. But what if you couldn't? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a corner of the financial world where every single action is final, and the stakes are, well, incredibly high. Welcome to the world of transaction discipline. Seriously, just think about that for a second. No backspace, no second chances. Every click, every number you enter is permanent. For the folks working in certain financial operations, this isn't some hypothetical question. It's their daily reality. It's a high-stakes world where close enough could literally cost millions. So precision isn't just a goal, it is the only way to survive. So let's step into this world of precision, shall we? This is a place where one misplaced decimal point doesn't just create a little typo, it can completely derail a multi-million-dollar investment. A single unchecked box isn't just a small oversight, it's a potential regulatory nightmare just waiting to happen.
And here's the key thing to understand. We're not just talking about getting the math wrong. We are talking about breaking the law. In this world, an error is a compliance breach. It's the kind of thing that triggers alarms, invites intense regulatory scrutiny, and puts the integrity of an entire financial institution right on the line.
Okay, so to really get why the stakes are just so high, we need to understand the product at the center of all this chaos. So let's talk about what a registered annuity actually is.
At its heart, it's a contract where your investment returns aren't fixed. Instead, they're tied directly to the performance of underlying investments, things like stocks and bonds. And that one little word, variable, that's what makes everything so incredibly complex. Because its value is changing daily, sometimes even hourly, the pressure to act with both speed and perfect accuracy becomes immense. Let me break down the key difference here. A fixed annuity is kind of like a savings bond. It's predictable, it's safe, but a variable annuity, it's strapped to the rocket of the market. Now that means there's a higher potential for growth, for sure, but it also brings a whole lot more risk, and for the people managing it, a massive amount of complexity. And this is where the government steps in. Because these products are linked directly to the volatility of the market, they have to be registered with regulatory bodies to protect consumers. And that oversight, that's exactly what cranks the pressure up to 11 on every single transaction.
So this whole situation creates 2 relentless pressures for anyone in the hot seat handling these transactions. On one side, you've got a racing clock, and on the other, a pair of very, very watchful eyes.
First up, that racing clock. In this industry, they call it turnaround time, or TAT discipline. A transaction request comes in, and it has to be processed that day. So why the rush? Well, because if you wait until tomorrow, the market could shift, and the value of that customer's investment could change dramatically. A delay isn't just bad service, it's a direct financial risk.
And then you've got the watchful eyes of the IRS. These transactions are just packed with super specific tax rules. For instance, is a withdrawal a required minimum distribution? That's the amount a retiree has to take out each year. Has the correct amount of tax been withheld? You get any of this wrong, and you're not just dealing with an unhappy client, you're looking at serious compliance penalties.
And this quote right here is basically the guiding philosophy. The goal isn't just to get good at fixing mistakes. The goal is to build a system where mistakes are basically impossible. Every single error is seen as a failure of the process, a preventable breach of not just regulation, but of trust. So, how in the world do you operate flawlessly in an environment this intense? Well, it all comes down to a professional code, a set of commitments that are drilled into every single person who touches these transactions. This is the bedrock of operational rigor. Now, I want you to listen closely because this right here is the heart of it all. If you are a new associate starting in this field, this isn't just friendly advice. This is the standard you are held to from day one. It is not a checklist you run through. It is a mindset you must internalize to protect the client, the company, and the entire system itself. These are your 3 core directives. First, verify before processing. Never ever assume any piece of information is correct. You actively confirm every name, every number, every single detail. You are the final line of defense. Second, escalate when unsure. Look, feeling uncertain isn't a weakness, it's a signal to stop and get guidance. A bad guess is just a future error waiting to happen. And third, document with discipline. Every action you take must create a clear, auditable trail. This documentation isn't just for your own notes. It's your proof of diligence when a regulator comes asking questions 6 months from now. When you put it all together, you see that this personal discipline, it's so much more than just a good work ethic. It is the human firewall. It is what stands between a simple typo and a systemic crisis. The collective rigor of thousands of individuals is literally what protects the integrity of our entire financial system.
You know, it really makes you think, doesn't it? From a pilot's pre-flight checklist to a surgeon's strict protocol in the operating room, this intense level of human diligence is all around us, and it's often completely invisible. So what other unspoken, rigorous codes are out there, quietly protecting the systems we all rely on every single day?